The rest of the world is moving forward because they understand the impacts of being able to communicate and transfer value with an utmost degree of certainty of security and finality. And that's the thing, I use the word finality because like, if you think about using your credit card and buying some goods at the store or like paying for services or even paying your mortgage, like that payment actually isn't final. Like that payment is just a promise that it will be final someday. But in blockchain, the finality is way more efficient and much more precise than any of those payment mechanisms we have today, because all that stuff takes time. But with blockchain, it's cryptographically signed and it's executed. And so finality is overlooked often because we take it for granted because we just borrow and lend all day long. But that's really what it is. But with blockchain, it's actually finality.
Let's discover what people are building in the greater Cleveland community. We are telling the stories of Northeast Ohio's entrepreneurs, builders, and those supporting them. Welcome to the Lay of the Land podcast, where we are exploring what people are building in Cleveland and throughout Northeast Ohio. I am your host, Jeffrey Stern, and today I had the real pleasure of speaking with Andrew Maurer. Andrew is the co-founder and CTO of Rise Works, an all-in-one compliance and payment platform designed for companies with global workforces. Rise, which is based in Pepper Pike and has raised $3.8 million in seed funding from investors like Draper Associates, Polymorphic Capital, Sino Global Capital, Hashkey Capital, and many other angel investors, offers a platform with flexible payment infrastructure along with automated routing between fiat and cryptocurrencies, ultimately enabling Web2 and Web3 organizations to onboard, manage, and pay local and international contractors and other global workers, all while ensuring full compliance and alleviating burdensome tax processes, covering over 90 local currencies, over 100 cryptocurrencies, and having paid out over $10 million to teams in countries across the world. Andrew, who is originally a California transplant, now living on the east side of Cleveland for the last 15 years, came to build Rise with 2 decades of experience developing software and a decade-long experience at Dealer Tire here in Cleveland prior. Andrew is also a pilot, flying mostly for fun. This was a fascinating conversation as we unpack Andrew's passion for blockchain and instant global payments as a catalyst for positive change, the future of digital identity, the challenges of companies building in the Web3 space, opting to focus on global first, the staying power of crypto, and a whole lot more. So please enjoy my conversation with Andrew Maurer after a brief message from our sponsor. Lay of the Land is brought to you by Impact Architects and by 90. As we share the stories of entrepreneurs building incredible organizations in Cleveland and throughout Northeast Ohio, Impact Architects has helped hundreds of those leaders, many of whom we have heard from as guests on this very podcast, realize their own visions and build these great organizations. I believe in Impact Architects and the people behind it so much that I have actually joined them personally in their mission to help leaders gain focus, align together, and thrive by doing what they love. If you too are trying to build great, Impact Architects is offering to sit down with you for a free consultation or provide a free trial through 90, the software platform that helps teams build great companies. If you are interested in learning more about partnering with Impact Architects or by leveraging 90 to power your own business, please go to ia.layoftheland.fm. The link will also be in our show notes. It's a long time in the making here. So I'm excited to talk with you about Rise. I feel like most emerging technologies evolve in these cycles, and in the world of crypto and Web3, following a period of, I think, significant, hype and activity, I think it would be fair to say the sentiment has waned a little bit in this proverbial winter sense, and that the casual observer may have turned somewhat cynical and overlook the actual progress that I think the industry is still making, particularly amidst all the kind of profile headlines of bankruptcies and frauds and flameouts of the last few years. However, to me, as kind of like a longtime follower of this space, I try and just look for the durable progress that's being made in the space. And have been very much looking forward to talking with you guys for a while. So I'm excited to learn more about Rise and the work you're doing. So thank you for coming on, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And Yeah, definitely a long time coming. Been trying to schedule this for a while, for sure.
So can you just kind of take us through your own background and, your path to entrepreneurship? I know everyone also personally has their, initial spark and interest in the crypto and Web3 space somewhere along the line. I don't know exactly where it was for you. How is it that came into the picture along your own career progression around the things you were working on?
Yeah, quickly background. I've been in technology for 2 decades now. It's been a long time. I'm starting out at a very large company, AT&T, out in California. So I really got exposure to like how these massive behemoth companies really operate. And I had the opportunity in 2008 to come out to Cleveland, and that's where I got really into a smaller company, Dealer Tire, which at that time was really more of like a medium-sized company. And the team was small. I was number 5 on the development team. And so we had to make decisions really quick and move forward. And that grew into a company that had 30 or so developers, quite decent sized workforce. And I moved from into development into some senior leadership roles in there. And in that experience, it gave me exposure to how business operates. Why do you care about your general ledger? How do you care about accounting and compliance and operations? And that was really, really great from a growing perspective and experience, which kind of put a bow on being ready for entrepreneurship and going off my own. And so that's what I did in 2018. I actually left to join a startup and just be a consultant for a startup and do my own consulting thing where I was running my own payroll and QuickBooks and charging customers and everything. So really got to see the full gamut of technology and how it relates to these large and very small companies. At that point, I just wanted to actually go off on my own and really have a lot more influence over my own success, because when you're the one person show or a really small startup, like the more work you put in, a lot of times you get that reward given back to you. So that's really where I wanted to be. And so at that time too, it was a conversion from working at Dealer Tire, which is a very traditional business, over into the blockchain space. And part of that decision to leave a comfy position to move into something on my own was around crypto. So it really, if I could sum it up, is really, I learned I can program money. And once you learn you can program money, you're like, as a developer, you're like, the world opens up, because you never thought of doing that before. But all of a sudden, you can write programs and send value anywhere in the world. And you can run servers to communicate with other servers anywhere in the world. These protocols just started opening up and opening doors for developers. That's really what piqued my interest and really kind of pushed me over the ledge, not just from like the ownership perspective, but really the new thing that was coming out that was exciting and really world impacting. And so I don't think a lot of people get opportunities in their lifetime to actually jump into a new technology that's groundbreaking, like crypto and even AI now, and really grab it by the horns. And so that's really how I got started. And before I even left and to be a consultant, I actually was running miners in my basement. So I was mining Ethereum with GPUs. I had 36 GPUs in my basement, charging a ton of electricity and heat vents going out of the basement into to the outside, and really kind of tipping my toes in that way. And then of course, leaving and learning a whole lot about Ethereum. And so when I left, I was actually writing APIs, and I was becoming very familiar with the Ethereum, the RPC endpoints, the data that made up Ethereum, and the nodes that ran globally and communicated globally. So that's kind of how I really got really involved, because I got introduced into this fine-grained introduction into Ethereum. Everything I've done after that has been built upon that foundation, essentially.
As we make our way to Rise, was that of the first of the explorations you had done, with that foundation in place, or where directionally were you thinking about problem solving with regards to what you could build with programmable money?
Yeah, at that point, it was much more just focused around career and exposure as being like a technologist wanting to do new, interesting things. So I didn't have an insight into what I want to do with Rise. But at the heart of it was really around looking at the technology, not trying to speculate on tokens or anything that you typically hear about crypto, but really understanding like how the technology works and knowing how to wield it. That's really where my passion has always been. And yeah, that is definitely part of the start of Rise as well.
So tell us a little bit about Rise and what it is and what you're actually trying to do.
Yeah, so Rise, we're focused on paying global teams. As new companies spin up, like finding the talent you need is not always next door. They're somewhere in the world. And with the internet, with video conferencing, people working from home, like your team doesn't have to be in the same city or states or even country. And knowing that, we wanted to build a platform to help facilitate payments globally and make it easy for people. Because if anybody's ever tried to send a bank payment from one country to another, it's not easy. It's really complex. There's other providers you have to deal with, other banking systems that don't make sense to you because you haven't used them before. And it's not cheap. It's very expensive to do as well. So we wanted to really build a platform that people could get paid on very easily, and the payer does not have to worry about compliance regulation, and doesn't have to worry about what currency they're receiving, or the payers or the payees receiving. And the compliance aspect is really making sure contracts is in place, that there's a clear relationship between the payer and payee, what the payment is for, and really having everything just kind of in order for those payments. Where Rise started was this really desire to really use the blockchain technology for what it's designed for, and not for just investing in tokens and even exchanges, but really just to facilitate these global payments. And that's why myself and my co-founder, Hugo, we came up with an idea of one way you can get involved in crypto is getting paid for it. The other way is investing. So that's really what we wanted to focus on, is people getting paid in crypto. The other part of it is self-sovereign money. Like if you're getting paid in crypto, you can keep it in crypto and decide what to do with it. And that also means investing into DeFi protocols and becoming your own bank, essentially, where your funds at rest are actually generating yield for you and working for you while they're just sitting there.
So how do you actually explore the idea maze there, knowing that I think at the time a lot of people are beginning to think about those kinds of applications and use cases as well? And I imagine it felt quite saturated at the time of folks trying to figure out how to crack, this particular kind of problem. So how did you approach, like at the onset, what the strategy would be to build something lasting here as an organization?
Well, I'll say at the very beginning, we got it, I wouldn't say wrong, but a little bit prematurely. Actually, Rise started out as a workplace, much like a workplace for freelancers to offer up their services, like Fiverr. Fiverr is a really good example of where you can go and post your services and people pay for them. That's where Rise started. We were collecting freelancers from all over the world who would post their services, and then creating a way for users to go on and pay with cryptocurrency, or pay with their credit card, and it gets transmitted in cryptocurrency. So that's still like working for crypto and getting paid in crypto. That's still was the foundation. But we quickly realized that it's really difficult to start up such a marketplace without a large marketing budget to really draw in the users, because you're essentially building a two-sided marketplace. You need customers to pay for it, and you need freelancers to provide services. So how do you reach these people? Once we built it, we realized we don't have any money to really push marketing efforts. But we also found a real need to connect companies and their contractors and their payees. There's compliance concern around how you manage relationships between companies and contractors as well. So we're filling that gap as well, to say that when you're working with this company, what are your roles and responsibilities? And are you concerned that this user might be more of an employee rather than a contractor? So protecting the company that way as well is where we found a great opportunity. So we pivoted in 2020. We pivoted from a marketplace into a payroll processing platform.
And after and through that pivot, I believe you've sought to appeal both to, kind of crypto native and traditional companies simultaneously, working with both fiat, money as people have historically thought of it, and crypto based currency, and kind of webbing together the corresponding internal accounting systems. So, just kind of first off, how does that all work? And from the perspective of crypto, where have you found that, the gravity and pull has been strong for the adoption of that use case?
When we built Rise, we had we still do have a real emphasis on being not so Web3 focused, meaning like it doesn't require a lot of this large learning curve. It doesn't require you to have a wallet or even know what a blockchain is or what even a blockchain transaction looks like.
Right. And when you say Web3, what is it that you mean by that?
Yeah, so Web3 being this new web of transactions. Like, so today you might go on a website and buy something, you log in, you buy something by clicking a button, you provide your credit card. Web3, you might even log in with a crypto wallet. And so this wallet is essentially like your, not necessarily ID, but it's your access into this network of compute nodes that allow you to actually send and interact with websites. This wallet contains a public and a private key. This private key is yours to keep safe, and this public key is essentially your identifier within these networks and within these websites. And you can sign messages, and you can actually attest that you are who you say you are, and your actions are confirmed through cryptographic signatures using these wallets. And so, like, all of those things I just said are confusing to a lot of people because, like, why do I need all this stuff, right? And so, like, knowing, like, that's a huge learning curve and a hurdle for any company that even wants to attempt to do this. Realize that that's not going to be really realistic, right? One, they're probably not going to have crypto, and two, that they probably want to pay in something that's stable. They're not going to want to pay something that fluctuates minute over minute or day over day. And so we really focused on making sure that facilitating the payment happens in a stable way, as well as working within our website, within the RisePay application. Your user behavior, the interactions that you're making feel much more like you'd use any other website. And so that's what we really try to focus on, even though the foundation of the RisePay platform and Rise Works, everything we do is based on blockchain. So all the data goes into blockchain. When you send money, it's on blockchain. When you change settings in your account, it's on blockchain. And the reason we do that is for security. We had a user just actually yesterday that was saying, "Oh, my account got hacked. Like, make sure my account's safe." And we said, "It already is. You have a wallet. Like, we don't have to do anything. Like, we'll reset your account if we need to, but there's nothing else for us to do because you've already protected it another way." And you can think of this as a multi-factor authentication, or 2FA, where you actually have this other authentication mechanism to protect your account. And that's a great example of why this stuff matters. So, like, it's a hard learning curve, but when you need it, you realize by having it, it really protected you, and it was actually great. And so that's been really valuable for us. And so how that works, like when the RisePay platform, is that if you want to get into Web3, you want to do anything on a Web3 application, you need this wallet. Well, within the RisePay platform, we actually give you a wallet if you don't already have one. So if you're not a native crypto user, you're not familiar, we have a simple option, which actually will just give you a wallet in the background, but all you need to know is the password to this wallet. And that's all you need to know using the platform. So it has a very much Web2-like feel. You just need to know a password, and you actually are interacting with the blockchain. And we don't show you blockchain transactions. We don't try to show you speculative cryptocurrency, exchange sort of graphs or anything like that. It's really just about paying people and paying them securely.
So where is the company today? Having gone through these sets of learnings and go-to-market mechanism, how do you describe Rise today, where the company is, and what your current focus is?
Yeah, so we're growing month over month. It's a little bit slower now at 10%, but we've had the past several months growing at 20 and 30%. We've gotten a lot of attention from DAOs where they're crypto heavy in their treasury and they're paying their workforce. And their workforce sometimes need to be paid in USD or fiat or into their bank account to pay for their bills and goods and services. And so we see a lot of that, and that's where we're really focusing and growing. And so our goal is to make sure we're known to all of these crypto treasury heavy companies, that we're a great option for them to actually spend their treasury and pay their people, and they don't have to worry about how they're receiving those funds. So we're growing. We're focused on crypto users, even though our application has very much like a Web2 or basic website feel. And right now we're focused on building our payroll application, which will launch with an EOR, Employer Record Services, which means that we represent and we are the company in the United States that employs those users. And so this is really attractive if you are cross geography, across the United States, and you don't have entities in every state, or you're not in the United States and you want to pay US workers. Rise is a great option for you to run payroll and have employees with benefits and savings accounts.
So I definitely want to tackle the geography agnostic approach and global first implications. But I think we just got to define, for folks what a DAO is who may not be familiar. I've always, to date, I've always kind of thought of like Bitcoin as the original DAO because it's this decentralized, autonomous organization. There's no managerial overhead. It's collective decision making from the bottom up since inception, but I think it's kind of evolved a bit since then. So how is it, that you think about what a DAO is and what are those organizations and how are you working with them today?
Yeah, and we get caught up in living this life day to day. You say these acronyms and these things that maybe don't make sense to a lot of people. And so decentralized autonomous organization is a collection of users who actually have ownership in some sort of quote unquote company, but it's like a soft company where there's really no like legal entity in any country, but there's actually like people collaborating to build up what is an entity across the entire world. Once you have ownership in it, you have different voting rights and different ways of influencing the company. And the benefits from it are these internal controls, these internal financial mechanisms that actually you work for and you get paid and you live your life. And so you're not like necessarily signing up for a company, you're signing up for a global effort. And these are very much technically related or developer related today, especially because you're building these digital technologies that can be developed from anywhere, right? So you probably wouldn't see this in like a farm or something because like you're not autonomous, you're not decentralized anymore, you're in a specific location. So yeah, that's how I think about them. I think that there's good and bad from what I know, that the challenges are that everything is democracy. Like, so there's votes that happen with everything. So that slows a lot of things down. So I think that's some of the bad in there. And you don't get to necessarily choose and pick who you're working with. A lot of these DAOs, they take any contributor, right? So sometimes that might cause some problems too. But that's really who we're working with. I mean, a lot of times we do have traditional companies as well who pay with bank accounts. They send bank wires, they fund their account, and they pay their teams globally because, as I said in the beginning, like it is hard to pay people around the world in different countries and different banking systems.
So let's talk a bit about the global market. I feel like most companies, when they start, with the U.S. launch and then subsequently will go global later. But like you mentioned, increasingly work has become somewhat borderless and global in scope, particularly for, I think, the most technologically forward applications for things like crypto or even AI. It's very internet first as a concept, which tends to be very not geography first. So how have you approached that? What does that look like as a company, taking on the global market first almost?
From finding talent, that's one thing. Like I think talent and the way they interact with a company is different from, Eastern Europe to South America to, of course, United States, right? So the sourcing that talent is challenging, and weighing the pros and cons to including those users onto your team is also definitely something to consider. I found actually great success in Brazil. We've had some really good developers from Brazil joining the team as well. But payments looks like for our company is that we have actually quite a few payment remittance channels and disbursement channels. And that's really been our focus for our infrastructure and our payment system for the banking side of things. Of course, crypto is easy when it comes to global payments. But when you need to interact with all these different banking partners, then we need different channels for that. So we've been really just on a roll and integrating with different providers to hook into Pix or SEPA or other banks around the world, and we always fall back to wire transfers as well if we need to. So really just making sure we have all those different channels enabled.
And so kind of just rounding out the product offering and the actual value coming through the platform here. You had also mentioned an important piece here is that people have to authenticate that they are who they say they are, right? So, thinking about potential fraudulent type situations that could arise in this environment that you're operating. How is it that you've thought about, what it is to have a professional identity in the Rise ecosystem?
Yeah, well, early on in building Rise, realize that everybody that joins the platform really we need to know who they are, one, for money laundering purposes and for national security and for making sure that we're not providing resources to illicit activities. And knowing that quickly turned into, well, everybody on our platform is essentially being identified, which leads us to we need some way to identify these users on chain. And from that, we've created something called the Rise ID. This Rise ID is your identity within the Rise ecosystem, but it's a little bit more than that. It's not just your identity when you receive payments, it's also your identity for partnership integrations. So if you wanted to give approval to read your private data, you could theoretically do so through the Rise ID, write custom attributes to this on-chain contract, which is publicly accessible anywhere throughout the world. And that would be of approval to a third-party entity for Rise to share your information. And it could be, authentication information that could be approved and rejected at any time. And the value here is that one, it's globally accessible, and two, that you're in control of the keys, meaning that you can approve and reject these attributes and the sharing attestations anytime you like. Now, none of this is like public identity data. It's really just more of identifiers to share public identity data, but this information isn't actually on chain. It's just the approval to do so. But writing these smart contracts on chain that is your your anonymous identity that allows you to write any sort of attribute really is flexible. So if you think of certifications, in platform integrations, and anything else that needs some sort of like pointer back to a very trusted source, that's what this is really for. And so, so everybody on the RisePay platform, they go through a KYC or a KYB, that's know your customer or know your business process. During onboarding, at the end of onboarding, you're given this Rise ID that's on chain. So it's an address, smart contract that actually you can write custom attributes to it.
Lay of the Land is brought to you by John Carroll University's Bowler College of Business, widely recognized as one of the top business schools in the region. As we've heard time and time again from entrepreneurs here on Lay of the Land, many of whom are proud alumni of John Carroll University, success in this ever-changing world of business requires a dynamic and innovative mindset, deep understanding of emerging technologies and systems, strong ethics, leadership prowess, acute business acumen, all qualities nurtured through the Bowler College of Business. With 4 different MBA programs of study spanning professional, online, hybrid, and 1-year flexible, the Bowler College of Business provides flexible timelines and various class structures for each MBA track, including online, in-person, hybrid, and asynchronous, all to offer the most effective options for you, including the ability to participate in an elective international study tour, providing unparalleled opportunities to expand your global business knowledge by networking with local companies overseas and experiencing a new culture. The career impact of a Bowler MBA is formative and will help prepare you for this future of business and get more out of your career. To learn more about John Carroll University's Bowler MBA programs, please go to business.jcu.edu. The Bowler College of Business is fully accredited by AACSB International, the highest accreditation a college of business can have. Recently you guys have closed on about $3.8 million in funding. The recent winner of Consensus, which I believe is maybe the largest conference for companies building in this space. So tell us a little bit about like what the fundraising process was like, and a little bit about the vision for where Rise is going. And I think maybe a fun way to think about that is when Rise is in full form in your mind at some hypothetical point in the future. What does that future look like? What are the jobs that are created? What does the world look like in which that future comes to be?
So starting with our raise and the Pitch Fest Consensus winners, like our raise, I have a co-founder, his name's Hugo. He did a lot of the legwork with the raise. I was kind of there with him as his cheerleader, so to speak. But man, I felt all the emotions and raising it. It is a roller coaster. I like to equate it to dating. Like investors are hot and cold, and I think more so, even though because it's at the seed stage where you're doing things all based on a lot of promise and hopes and not like factual data, because you're building your company, you're building your product, you're working on that MVP and growing your customer base. So it's a lot less about recipes and math and growth. And it's more about like just showing that you can have a product here and your team can execute. And so I think that's why it's extra emotional in that way, because it's really hard to convince people sometimes, even though like everything makes sense to you. It's not everybody sees the same vision as you. So so it was tough. It was a long time in the works there, but definitely got some great investors out of it. Sino Global Capital being one, Draper Associates. And originally one of our very early investors was Justin Mateen, founder of Tinder, he came in at our pre-seed stage and really gave us the opportunity to really kind of get started. So all that, while it has been challenging and difficult to work through, definitely shows resilience, and definitely glad to come out on top. We're still working hard and growing fast. So, and as far as the Pitch Fest Consensus, the Consensus Conference is the largest Ethereum conference of the year, sponsored by Consensus, who is the company behind Ethereum that originally created Ethereum. We had an opportunity to pitch. I think it was around 30 some other companies that pitched as well, all very good companies. But right now, I think it kind of shows that there's a real need to build this infrastructure, infrastructure for like payments and some real payroll processing companies. And so, super happy that we won. I think Hugo did an excellent job presenting in that, and shows that our technology has a place, and so do our users using it. So super happy about that. As far as what it looks like in the future for Rise, we really want to grow to just streamline payments for people. Like every week, I use Rise myself to pay my team, and I literally go in, click a few things, and I'm done paying payroll. And I know everything's done accurately because it's on chain. It's all cryptographically signed and calculated, and I'm the only one that can do it because I have the keys. Like there is a level of comfort that is just not that usual in the technology space, because this signing of cryptographic messages is really what gives you confidence as a developer and as a user that things are accurate. And that's really, I think, the huge difference here, that it's hard to really describe other than just feeling it and exposing yourself to it and trying. The blockchain technology being Turing complete, which means that all the inputs will always equal the outputs at any given state, means that you really can have confidence that when something works, it really does work. It doesn't sort of work, as some technology isn't built all that well, and so it just sort of works. So that's always been a treat as well. So, but yeah, streamlining payments for companies and paying global workforces, that really gives companies the opportunity to grow because they have a larger talent pool to draw from. They don't have to find the people just down the street or even in the state. They can find help all over the world to build their companies.
What does the business model itself look like? And one of the things I'm interested about in kind of a more traditional go-to-market strategy hat on is, when you think about that concept of the ideal customer persona, I don't imagine there's been a lot of precedent set around like how to sell and market to DAOs, for example, knowing that's just a segment. But like, how is it that you're thinking about what it is to go to market here, and differentiation, and the actual selling of the product?
The selling is, being crypto enabled. We've won a lot of customers that have looked at competitors that are not crypto focused, that are, typical Web2 companies that have really full control over where money is going and what it's doing. And we've won a lot of customers just because we're foundationally built on blockchain, and that's their native place that they want to be. And so that's a huge selling point. The other part is focusing on the companies, especially the early stage, who are interested in like, how do I get into a payroll processing system that's not overly burdened or even influences my accounting aspects? That might be a completely different thing, but a way to really just streamline and automate these payments from my currency that I currently have. And so focusing on these DAOs, it's not only DAOs, there's plenty of companies out there that are crypto heavy in their treasury that want to pay their users, that are very much companies. Even Rise ourselves, we have part of our treasury in crypto as well, in stablecoin, just to have it there for paying people. And really focusing on those crypto-enabled companies because they're new, they're very much interested in our product, and making sure they know about us.
What have been some of the lessons learned as the sentiment and perception of crypto has ebbed and flowed over the last decade here, with kind of varying degrees of optimism and pessimism around it, that feels just kind of amplified on either side of that spectrum?
Yeah, I mean, the bad actors in the space definitely haven't made it easy for the people trying to do good. That's for sure. And the political landscape has also made it much more complicated. But being in technology, one thing I believe 100% is technology is solid. It's secure. It's working. And it has high throughput. And so I will fall back on the actual data and that technology before I'll really invest a lot of concern into the political landscape. And I think you see that in the rest of the world too. The rest of the world is moving forward because they understand the impacts of being able to communicate and transfer value with an utmost degree of certainty of security and finality. And that's the thing, I use the word finality because like, if you think about using your credit card and buying some goods at the store or like paying for services or even paying your mortgage, like that payment actually isn't final. Like that payment is just a promise that it will be final someday. But in blockchain, the finality is way more efficient and much more precise than any of those payment mechanisms we have today, because all that stuff takes time. But with blockchain, it's cryptographically signed and it's executed. And so finality is overlooked often because we take it for granted because we just borrow and lend all day long. But that's really what it is. But with blockchain, it's actually finality.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly operating on the frontier, but there is a decade plus track record of what this technology looks like in practice operating at scale. And so I think the often cited criticism of the space writ large has been that it's kind of a technology in search of a problem to be solved. But you just kind of look at where we are right now, and there are a lot of problems being solved with it.
There definitely are, and I think that we haven't even really skimmed the surface on the problems it's actually solving. Another great example is supply chain accuracy. I want to say I heard a talk not too long ago about Walmart's ability to like trace back any sort of infected or foul food back to its source very quickly because they have this now track record of these chains of transactions throughout their entire supply chain. And so like use cases like that we're going to start seeing come to light, but it really is a value add when you recognize like how much more efficient you can become if you have these systems in place. And I really like to encourage like users to really get involved and start learning about blockchain, because I think the self-sovereign like sounds fancy, but it really is impactful if you were able to actually put that money to work and you had full control over it 24/7 and in your hands control over it and transactions that happened right away without waiting for finality on those things. So yeah, I think it can be really a really interesting place to be in the future. We're using blockchain to pay for things.
I've thought a bit about that concept there, as my own company's kind of played in a similar space. But the consequence right now is that it's like 91% of Americans feel they don't have agency over how their own information is stored on the internet, how secure it is, who has access to it, and who is actually profiting from it. And I think it does kind of represent this growing and deep mistrust of centralized data ownership. And so the problem is that, the current data paradigm is not a great deal for individuals, and that ultimately individuals should have some ownership over the data that belongs, pertains, and originates from themselves. And I think the regulatory bodies are kind of moving in that direction when you think about what GDPR in Europe kind of lays out and some of the regulatory bodies as well in the States have laid out, particularly in California. But as it relates to those kinds of pieces of your digital identity, which covers, I think, a lot of what you're working on as well.
And I think that we're going to see that become more and more important issue of your privacy and your data getting out there, especially with AI and what you now can start doing with AI. People are going to start really worrying about where their data goes. I think before AI, like wielding that data from all these consumers was probably a whole lot harder. And so now I think that privacy is going to become even more of a concern of users. And that's definitely why, you want to have keys in your hand and control over that at all times, not giving it to other companies.
So what is coming next for Rise? When you think about, what it is that you're building, what you're going to build next, how you prioritize, what is the direction that you guys are trying to go in kind of the proverbial life cycle of startups to unlock the next stage? What are the kind of milestones that you're working towards and trying to validate as a company?
Yeah, we're focused on 100% processing payroll in the United States. And when I say 100%, what I really mean is payrolls, the term's used a little bit lightly, but when I say payroll, I really mean like processing your tax deductions, forwarding on tax deductions to government agencies, like true payroll and true employees. So we've got partnerships for benefits, we've got partnerships for savings, and we have a product we're building that actually will be calculating and withdrawing payroll, tax deductions and other deductions from your paycheck through the RisePay platform. So that's definitely top of mind. Other things are bill pay and also DeFi protocols. So as I said, the self-sovereign and be able to put your money to work is really the essence of what we're trying to build here. And that is you get paid in crypto, and the next thing you want to do is either go buy goods or you probably want to invest it or save it. And that's really where DeFi comes in and really can expose users to being self-sovereign, have control over all of their finances, and it generating value for them. And truthfully, right, it hasn't been until recently till banks have actually started offering any sort of substantial interest rates on their savings accounts or even their checkings account. And I think a lot of that has to do with crypto. Regardless, though, I think that having that control in your hands is most important. So what we want to do is really expose all these DeFi protocols to typical users and make it really easy for them to interact with them.
And DeFi meaning decentralized finance.
Yeah, decentralized finance. So to take that further, that means you putting your money into smart contracts that are tested, trusted, have been audited, and they're providing value. So a good example is you might just put your money out there to be borrowed at 4 or 5% on that lend money. And that lending of money is actually fully collateralized. So there's not this under collateralized loan that has high risk. The money's already there. And for anybody that borrows against the money that you put forward, they actually have over collateralization. So if that user defaults, you actually get even more back. And so that's why it's a very interesting way of doing it and providing that funds and making it liquid. Today, your bank serves that purpose, right? That's actually the true purpose of the bank, is to actually lend out money, not to keep your money safe. But crypto can cover both of those angles.
So all this said, what is the impact that you hope to have looking back here in retrospect? I think we've touched on this a bit, but what does success look like if all this plays out and goes according to plan?
Yeah, according to plan, we have users that are getting paid in crypto. We're streamlining processes for companies. We've got hundreds of thousands of users using the payroll processing system, and payments are flowing automatically, securely, and with same day and same hour, same minute finality. And users are actually then taking their money and investing it for themselves and being in full control of their funds, and a flourishing ecosystem of those opportunities for users to put their funds into either investment vehicles or either pay for things on the go using their mobile phone.
And from the perspective of Rise as a company altogether, when you think about where you're trying to take the company itself, how does that work in parallel to the vision for the value that you're bringing to market?
Yeah, we're processing payroll, we're employing people, and making things more efficient for companies to operate in that space. And when they are paying their people, they don't have to worry about which banks and which systems they have to integrate with. That's all handled for them.
And if things don't go according to plan, which they never do, what will have gone wrong in your mind that you're cognizant of, the risks that you're trying to mitigate? How are you approaching those? And what are the ones that keep you up most at night?
Yeah, I feel really good about the technology. I feel really good about the mission behind Rise and streamlining payments for users. What keeps me a little bit concerned is just these things that you can't control. The political landscape, of course, is always concerning because it has an impact of people's interest in learning about these new technologies. The other thing that's really important for anybody in the crypto space to work on, and I would say that we all know it, is just to make it easier for people to use. And until it becomes that, things aren't going to look right. And so that's really has to be the top of focus for everybody in the crypto space.
What are you most excited about looking forward?
As far as Rise or for crypto?
Both, actually. Yeah.
I'm most excited about processing payroll and on chain, because I think it just makes so much sense. These rules that are just written in stone, essentially, to process payroll and securely. For crypto, again, it's that mass adoption, to really have it and wield it on your phone and really have full control and trust in that money movement. I think that's just really, really exciting.
And I know you mentioned at the onset that an eye towards the future more than to the past in terms of reflection and, thinking about the company overall. But to ask about, lessons learned and reflections along the way, regardless, what have you taken with you? Whether it be with regards to crypto or just entrepreneurship, having taken that step away from dealer tire, so many years ago and on this entrepreneurial path, what do you know now that maybe you wish you knew at the onset, and what has surprised you along the way?
I'd probably say that things take longer than you anticipate. I think we're always, positive, and we think things take, probably half as much time as they actually take. And so I think for anybody who's getting into that space or crypto, whether it's crypto or it's just being an entrepreneur, and you're looking for investment rounds and stuff, they take a lot longer than you might imagine for one reason or another. And it may not have anything to do with what's in your control too. So it's really just around resiliency and just keep plugging on. So that's probably the biggest eye opener I have.
Is there anything that you've, coming into it, long held belief that you've changed your mind on as a consequence of having gone through this journey?
Not necessarily. I mean, we have maybe there was some opinions like you want to have a United States workforce. You work best with them, but I think one of the things I was opened up to is really the talent that's in other countries that are very much capable of working with United States workers. And what I mean by that is like culturally they fit, they can communicate well, and they can execute. You can work with them at a very high degree of efficiency. So I didn't know that was as true it is. I had a kind of a belief that maybe like it required a whole lot more communication, documentation, but I found that it's not necessarily true. The rest of the world can definitely work with U.S. companies very easily.
And how has been growing a remote organization from Cleveland?
Great. So part of my development team is in South America, in Brazil specifically. And then I do have another Cleveland developer here too. But working with them as though they're working, next door. It really is surprising how well we all get along and have really kind of created this close knit of developers building a product. And so finding the talent is a little bit tougher because you're really not sure in the beginning, of course, because you're not in person necessarily. But what actually turned out to be really nice is if you found one, they typically know someone else who works really well too. And they're all very much interested in working for US companies. So that was also eye-opening too, but a great surprise.
With regards to what it is that you're building, of any misconceptions that people have, if you could, clarify one thing, what is it that you wish people understood about Rise and what it is that you're doing here?
I would say it's probably around the word crypto. I think like everybody thinks of crypto as investment, Ponzi scheme sort of stuff and bad actors, but really under the hood, there are so many people building right now. That's kind of the mantra in what they call a bear market when crypto isn't really high, but everybody's building really great, sophisticated technology. ZK proofs is really kind of the hot topic right now because they enable so much more throughput and aggregation of transactions, as well as things where you can interact with sites and you don't necessarily know who exactly sent the message, but you can send anonymous messages like voting systems and that sort of thing really make a whole lot of sense with this cryptographic technology. So point is that there's a lot of builders under the hood, and not everybody is who you see on the outskirts, the loud, noisy users that might be all about speculation and token values. It's really not about that. It's about building technology. So that's the biggest misconception with Rise, because we have crypto on our site, crypto we're working with, but just crypto in general. It's really not designed to be all around speculation. It's really designed around a value transfer system that's global and secure.
So we can close out then with our traditional closing question, which is for a hidden gem in Cleveland, something that other folks may not know about.
I was trying to think of like something unique, something that's special, something that somebody else hasn't said, but I kept coming back to the metro parks. I'm sure like you've had that answer plenty of times, but man, I would just say like, especially I grew up in California and it's got some great national parks and everything, but for the city parks and the really accessible parks, the metro parks have been fantastic. Just well-kept, large, beautiful systems of rivers and trails to partake in, and you really can feel like you get lost in them. So I've really enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed how accessible they are and how well that program is run. So definitely not hidden, but definitely something that people should know about.
Yeah, they can't get enough love for the metro parks. They are pretty extraordinary. Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you again, Andrew, for taking the time and coming on. I appreciate you sharing the story. Excited to follow along on your journey.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeffrey. And definitely like touch base in the future here and give updates. That'd be great.
Oh, absolutely. If people had anything that they wanted to follow up with you about, what would be the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, you can check us out at riseworks.io. And if you want to email me directly, I'm andrew@riseworks.io.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Andrew.
Thank you.
That's all for this week. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show. So if you have any feedback, please send over an email to jeffrey@layoftheland.fm or find us on Twitter @podlayoftheland or @sternhefe, JEFE. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please reach out as well and let us know. And if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or on your preferred podcast player. Your support goes a long way to help us spread the word and continue to bring the Cleveland founders and builders we love having on the show. We'll be back here next week at the same time to map more of the land. The Lay of the Land podcast was developed in collaboration with the Up Company LLC. At the time of this recording, unless otherwise indicated, we do not own equity or other financial interests in the company which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of any entity which employs us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.